I would say if I were young, starting out, go find a job. And it doesn't matter what it is. Find a job, keep trying things, and really pay attention to what you're learning from each of these jobs. What have you learned? And if you journal and write this down, you will find a pattern. It's amazing.
Hi, I'm Karen Gilhooly, host of Make Minutes Matter podcast. And today, my guest is Marie Letko. Marie is the owner-operator of a firm in Riverside, California called Cabinet Resources. And while that may not sound like it's applicable to all the people out there in viewing land, Marie actually has some very interesting insights to share with us today about her journey in becoming a female entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. Also, she's got some insights to share with us about working with multi-generational people in the workforce today and some of the things that we need to be conscious of when we're working together collaboratively to make something good happen in the world. But maybe we'll start with this idea of knowing yourself, because I think for a lot of people, our viewership very specifically, I think there are a lot of people who are on the journey. They haven't figured out ultimately what makes them tick, or maybe they've found a few little morsels of it, but there's still so much more to go. Mm-hmm. And what really stands apart for me when I think about it is that in order to know yourself, you have to be placed in a variety of different circumstances, situations, sometimes even challenges and heartbreaks, right, to know what you're made of. And I was talking with someone last week about this and how sometimes the toughest circumstance, even though it's absolutely brutal to manage, when you get to the other side of it, and you always do, when you look back, it gives a sense of accomplishment, I guess is the best word, to know that you could get through something like that, and then that just prepares you all that much more for the next thing coming down the road. How do you find that?
I remember being in 7th grade and the nuns asking me what career path was I going to take. And I had to lie to a nun because I didn't want to have a career. I wanted to be a mother. That was my first job and still my favorite. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted to have a family. I didn't really think about a career.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll have a job, but I didn't see myself as a career. I had a vision of my life that was going to be a homemaker, mm-hmm, like my mother, have a family, and raise my children. And that all changed. It was very different. I ended up going into the workforce unexpectedly. My first job was after raising children for 12 years. I got back into the workforce. Mm-hmm. So there was a time of regrouping and finding out what the workforce is like out there. So it was a big deal for me. I came into where technologies was just starting, yep, and learning new things. But I always believed that I could conquer stuff because, mm-hmm, my parents challenged us all the time.
Yeah.
And figure it out. My mom would say, "Go figure it out." Mm-hmm. And so we'd put our heads together and figure out whatever we had to fix something or work on a project or whatever. So even when it was homework, we had to collaborate. So with our sisters and brothers.
So Marie, people go down various paths, right, to learn what makes them tick. And I know that you were fortunate. You talked about the strong family environment that you had. Some of the learnings from those first jobs. But what was it that ultimately helped you know that you were headed in the right direction? And how did you know once you got there, if you even got there, even if you have gotten, maybe you haven't, maybe the journey still continues. So what do you think about that?
I didn't go into the workforce right away. I stayed home and raised my children for 12 years and then went into the workforce. Just was going to be part-time. Mm-hmm. The position I took was managing an office that happened to do with cabinetry. And I had no expectations of staying there. But I got promoted up and took care of the whole facility and learned about the company and the sales part of it. I was always interested in design. But what I liked is managing people. Mm-hmm. I liked working with people. I liked mentoring people. I love raising my children, so the natural thing was to help other people too. So that was a launching pad. What happened was the facility ended up closing down, and someone stepped up and said, Marie, why don't you go into sales? You'd be really good at it. And there's an opening, and we want you to go after it. And I accepted it. Now, I didn't even know the product.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't know anything about designing cabinetry. I knew that they weren't cupboards anymore, that they were cabinets. And
Cupboards. That's an old
exactly.
term.
And I had all of Southern California, and I had to put on my suit and go out and talk to people, cold calls, some existing accounts, and build the business. I knew that all these people were going to know more than me because they had years of experience on me. But I knew how to get them a credit. I knew the VP of the company. I knew all the people that could help me find the answers to the needs and questions of these accounts that I had. And that's what drove me forward, the knowledge that I did have, not the knowledge that I didn't have.
You know, that is such a super insight. That is such a super insight. You know, there's a statistic right now. I can't remember the exact numbers of it, but from a gist perspective, I think we can get this one across the line. That many people, women especially, when seeing an opportunity that's in front of them, they will look at every single qualification that's on the job posting. And if they're marginal or missing, they just won't do it. But yet, men seem to have a little bit more chutzpah, I guess, to want to go try something out. And so here you are. You didn't really know the job. You took a chance, and you were successful, as you said, because of how you were able to manage the knowledge base that you had and then grew it.
Exactly.
That's such a profound thing. And for our audience out there, that's something to consider is that, you know, I don't know that anyone really has all the information in the world. I think that it's
that's impossible to say because you have to wake up every day and think there's something new I can learn. I go to my clients, today I'll go to clients after this meeting here, and I will meet, and I know I'll learn something from them.
Yeah.
And I look for that. What can I learn from them that I can pass on to others? So that just keeps it passing forward. And what can I bring to them to help them build their business and increase their sales and the performance of their business, help their designers that are working on staff, close some sales techniques, and not just design, but also sales techniques. So there's layers of things that I can learn in the business. It's not just selling a product. It's about all the things that come together to get that product to the market, and also how do we handle it? How do we handle customers? How do you ask? How does a 25-year-old person, designer right out of school, go ask a client for $70,000 to buy a kitchen? That's more than they've made in their whole life in any job at this point. So I would say, if I were young, starting out, I would not wait to have a job. Go find a job. And it doesn't matter what it is. Find a job, keep trying things, and really pay attention to what you're learning from each of these jobs. What have you learned? And if you journal and write this down, you will find a pattern. It's amazing. We have clients come in and they'll bring inspiration pictures of their kitchen that they want designed. And some people will look up those pictures. It could be 20, 30 pictures, and they'll see all kinds of different things and not be able to recognize what the customer is trying to do. And a trained eye will say, oh, she definitely wants an island. She likes lighter painted colors. She wants a very modern kitchen compared to what she has now. So they'll look and see in the chaos of all the pictures that an untrained eye would see this cohesiveness. And we can find that in our jobs too. We can see, you know what, in all the jobs I had, the one thing I liked is I was always working with people. And I love that. I love the diversity of talking to people and finding the interest that drove me, even if it was routine work, to find fun in my job and learn and inspire. Read biographies of inspiring people. Find out what drove them. So many people, the founders of our country, even in big business, the Rockefellers, the Fords, how inspiring their stories can be, that, how little they had to start with and what they became because of the tenacity and hard work and the grit it took to keep pushing forward.
Yes, yes, yes. That again, more things to think about here, but one that stands out is this growth mindset. That this, in today's world especially, where things are changing so fast, if you're entering each day with the idea that there's nothing new to learn, I think you really miss out. I think you miss on so much.
It's changing so fast. If you say that, you're not digging into your work, because I think one of the hardest things is technology is changing the world so fast, and I don't know if we can assimilate as human beings that quickly, but we have to just turn off the noise, and that's part about being self-aware. Turn off that noise and focus on the one thing that's important in front of you right now to get you to the next rung in the ladder, so to speak. And by doing that, I think that you'll find the joy in your work. You'll find what you can learn and what you can pass on.
That is true. The other piece that you brought up, which I think really needs a little bit of conversation, has to do with this concept of grit, that the world is not an easy place. It's not necessarily an unwelcoming place, but it can be challenging at times. And I think that often it's hard to remember that those challenges are there for purpose, that they're there to teach us, that putting one foot in front of the other is an important learning exercise, but it's also an opportunity of self-discovery. So what you brought up grit, so tell me a little bit more about what you were thinking there.
Right, so grit is really perseverance, and building your character and learning about who you are, as you said, coming out of it. And to me, you get what you put in, always, no matter what the work is. If it's a volunteer position, in fact, volunteering is a great way to build your grit, because you're not getting paid for it. You're doing it for a purpose that's not
monetary.
It's not monetary, and it's not about you. It's really about others. So being self-aware, but also not self-indulging, and looking at our world as being a part of it and what I can do, not necessarily what is somebody going to bring me. So I think that without grit, you will always have a job and never a career that you could look back and say, I enjoyed my time in my career. We spend so much time at our job.
We do.
The biggest part of our life is work. And many of us have to take it home. It's part of, as an entrepreneur especially, and there's many people going into entrepreneurial fields, that comes home with you. And you have to accept that as part of your job. But if you really are passionate about it, you don't see that as work. You see it as another opportunity and what you can bring the next day. So for me, the grit brings so much opportunity. It pushes me forward. When I see what did I learn at the end of the week, what great things happen in my business from week to week, I see that my tenacity, my reaching out to others, my helping others has just got me further and further into my career. And that's really how I built 30 years in this industry.
So it's funny when you take a look at all the things that you've shared with us today, starting with how you grew up and the respect for work and doing a great job and being collaborative and united within your family, and then moving to that first job where you had a chance to actually look to the left and the right, and all of a sudden you see, my goodness, here are some people who have a very different background than I do, who have very different circumstances than I do. I'm doing this as a high school job. These people are doing this for a living. But yet what you saw in that job, as well as going into the job at the grocery store, the fact is that you took pride in your work. And I think that it's a lot easier to do a job well done when you actually feel some skin in the game, as opposed to just doing it because it's a paycheck. So in many ways, your job is actually more than a paycheck. Would you agree with that?
100%.
All right, tell me a little bit about that.
A job is a big portion of your life.
Yeah.
And if you're going to commit that much time to your life, why would you want to just look at it as a menial part of your life? So you have to find the joy in work, what work can how can add to your life. If you chase the dollar, you'll never receive the reward because there's never enough money. You'll always plateau when you're chasing money. Now we have to be paid for our hard work because that is a reward, and we have to live, so we have to pay our bills. So
Right.
of course that's naturally important, but to chase the money first and not the purpose. So finding meaningful purpose in a job and doing a job well done is the reward on top of the monetary reward on top of that. So
I talk to a lot of people, and it's funny because even if they're in a job that they don't like, here's what I'll hear. You know, I've got bills to pay, kids to put through school, all of that, but I really don't like what I'm doing. In fact, I kind of feel dead at work, but I'm stuck. And it's really hard. It's hard to share with people sometimes that they're only as stuck as they want to be. They may not be able to leave everything, put through their pink slip, and go trotting off to the next opportunity down the hill. They might not be able to do that today or maybe ever, but they can certainly change the way that they feel about their job and what they're doing, and using some of those things that we talked about, this opportunity to learn something new on a regular basis, to use that as a springboard to make whatever it is that you're doing a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more fulfilling. What do you think about that one?
I agree. So there's parts of our job in our career path that we just have to push through. And then there's plateaus sometimes where you take a job with the idea that this is really going to be your dream job. You're going to get paid well, has all this opportunity. But then you find maybe it's just the environment or the work itself isn't what you thought it was going to be. And or there was more to it than you're willing to give because on the outside you don't see the value that you thought it was going to bring. So sometimes you have to be fired from a job in order to move forward.
This is true.
I've
This
been
is
fired,
true.
and I've always learned. I've always learned from it. Not that I've been fired a lot, but that couple times that it's happened.
And when it happens, it hurts.
It does hurt,
It
but
hurts, yes.
oh yeah, there's a little ego there.
Yes.
But then it's always brought me more reward because I realized, and I've managed people, many people. I've fired many people and hired many people. And I'll bring this one example of a young woman that worked under me, and she became a real problem in the office, where she started picking and agitating the rest of the work staff to the point where she finally picked on the sweetest, kindest person in the office that nobody had a grudge against. Nobody could find one. She was so
Wonderful.
nice. So that was a straw. So I remember pulling her into my office, and I always had a box of Kleenex. And I said, Anita, I don't know what we're not providing for you. But whatever it is, you're missing something here. You're not happy, and we're not a good fit. So for that reason, I have to let you go. And I promise that if you really look at your work here and be honest with yourself, you're going to find a job that you're really going to like and be great at. And this is bringing you down. You're not happy. Every day it comes in, it's worse. And I'm sorry for that. But I know you have so much opportunity. You're smart. You're hardworking. You came in. You used to be there, but you're not there now. But I'm going to let you go, and you're going to find a better opportunity, and you're going to be happier for it. And she came back a few months ago. I was shocked that she came back. And she asked, Marie, can I talk to you privately. And I said, sure, it was good, so good to see her. And she said, Marie, firing me was the best thing you ever did.
Yes.
Because I never knew how unhappy I was until I was out of that environment. And it wasn't a bad place to work. It's that it was not fit for me. It was just not the right fit for me. I have a wonderful job now, and I'm so happy. And if you didn't do that, I'd still be miserable.
That's right.
And now I'm making more money, and I'm doing a job that I love.
It's funny that sometimes you have to have that almost like the alarm bell, the wake up, the alarm clock going off, and all of a sudden you're faced with cold reality.
Right.
Time to go do something, and that happens on both sides.
Right.
You know, because in that circumstance you had an employee who maybe once upon a time enjoyed what they were doing and fell out of love with the job for whatever reason, couldn't find anything to keep that growth mindset going. And then you have yourself, and you're looking at the ecosystem of your office, and keeping everybody moving in harmony is the job.
Right.
That's the job of the manager, is
Yes.
to make sure that the production, whatever that is going to be, that's smoothless, seamless, it's achieving the goals. And when you have an instigator that is disrupting things, for you to ignore that is really an absence of duty, a dereliction of duty.
100%.
Yes, and I think that people do take the easy road when it comes to that. It's tough. It's tough. People think it's tough to be fired. It's really hard to fire somebody.
It is.
It's very, very challenging. And for the managers out there that are going to be listening to our podcast today, please know this, that though it may be difficult, if it truly is a poor fit, or if the person is grossly unhappy, disruptive, whatever, give them a chance, obviously, to get back on sides. But if that continues, then you have to do something and find a way for that person to move to the next section of their career, the big journey and the adventure that lays out there, because it's not helping anybody.
And on top of that, so staying in a position, so say that you don't get fired and you're just unhappy, and that management doesn't see that, and you're dropping in production. To me, it's your own personal duty to do self-reflection
Yes.
and see why don't I like this job? Is it because I'm not putting enough effort in it, or because I don't see the end road being what I thought it was going to be? Staying there because of money or because it's easy is a very poor way to live the rest of your life.
Yes.
Because, again, we work so many hours at doing our job, and if you don't find the fulfillment in it, we only have so many minutes in our life, and what a waste not to make the best of a huge part of how we spend our time here on Earth.
You're right. I mean, if something is not right, you have to take a look at it and either correct it, find something to get you reinvigorated, or you need to move on.
And you can do that from mentoring. Find your mentor.
Yes.
Say, listen, I'm not happy. Who do you admire out there in the world? It could be a grandparent. It could be your parents yourself, another professional, someone in your faith, your community, your church that you could talk to. Even there's all kinds of mentors out there, career-wise, that you could talk to and reach out to. Especially with the internet now, you can just go online and find a life coach and help you through the process. So, asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. That is a smart way to move your life.
Yes.
Because you can waste a lot of time, or you can get the answers and help through other people who have gone through this or have knowledge to share that can help you make decisions. Because it is a big decision. Sometimes there's a lapse in your career, and it's a scary thing if you have a family to support. But a happy workplace and a happy career also brings you happiness in your personal life.
Yes.
So fulfillment, it's all full circle.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. So we are going to wrap up, which is unfortunate because I think we could go on for this for
We
quite a
probably
while.
could.
So Marie, if someone wanted to talk with you either about cabinets or about any of the things that we talked about today, where would they find you?
Well, they'd find me on LinkedIn
Okay.
under Cabinet Resources, and they could certainly reach out. I'm so passionate about mentoring and helping, especially this younger generation coming in, that I'm learning from because they operate very different. So they teach me a lot about technology, and I'm Mama Bear coming in to help a lot of post students, right, into this career. And I get such reward from it. And I feel that if I have all this curated talent and if I left it on the table as I exit my career, what a failure that would be at the end of my career.
Very sad. Very
Yes.
sad.
And so I am enjoying these last years of my career by helping those and passing it forward and watching them grow.
That's wonderful. That is just wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you were here.
Thank you so much.
And I
It was
hope
a
you'll
pleasure.
come back.
I would love to come back.
Wonderful. Well,
Yes.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Make Minutes Matter. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or click the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And let me know what you thought of today's conversation by following us on Instagram at Karen Gilhooly 1. That's Karen, Karen, Gilhooly, Gilhooly, and the number 1. Let's make every moment in your career truly matter. Have a great day.